In a land cradled between towering mountains, where the sun rises like a golden fire and sets like a wound across the horizon, there lies a village known as a Kofi. It rests beside a mighty river, a river that has seen the births and deaths of generations. The water flows with the wisdom of the ancients, its currents strong with the spirits of those who have passed. Here, the wind does not just blow through the trees. It speaks, carrying the whispers of ancestors long gone. The villagers live in harmony with nature, each life tied to the river, the mountains, and the spirits that dwell unseen among them. Every stone, every tree, every drop of water holds meaning. They are taught from a young age that the spirits of their forefathers walk among them, watching their every move. The elders speak in hushed tones, especially by the river, where the sacred ceremonies are held to honor the gods. These rituals are not only to honor the divine, but to remind the villagers of their place in the world, a balance of life, death, and the unseen forces that shape their fate. It is said that the river has two faces, one of life and one of death. It gives and it takes. And so, the villagers, though they are strong and resilient, never forget that the river's waters could turn treacherous should its spirits be angered. In the heart of a Kofi, there lives a young woman named Amina. She is a sight to behold, with skin the color of the earth after rain, eyes as deep as the river, and a smile that could light the darkest night. Her beauty is unmatched, and it seems to possess a kind of magic, one that draws the hearts of every man, woman, and child in the village. But it is not only her beauty that captivates them. Amina is wise beyond her years, a girl with the heart of an elder, though her laughter is light and her movements graceful. Raised by her grandmother, Nana Ifua, Amina's life is one of privilege and mystery. Nana Ifua is the keeper of ancient knowledge, and it is said that she alone knows the secrets of the river's spirits, the whispers of the mountains, and the truth behind the village's old customs. Though Amina is adored by the villagers, there are whispers, soft, fearful murmurs, that the girl carries a burden she dares not speak of. Even in her beauty, there is something unspoken, something her grandmother knows, but will not share. Among the villagers, there is a young man named Kofi. He is the son of a farmer, strong and steady, with hands that have worked the earth. Since he could walk, Kofi loves Amina deeply, his heart entwined with hers, like the vines that climb the village trees. But while his love for her is pure, Kofi is a man of ambition, one who dreams of something beyond the simple life that a Kofi offers. Kofi does not fear change. He sees the world around him, new tools, new ways, new ideas, and he longs for the village to grow, to rise above its traditions. But this yearning for something new creates a tension within him. How can he embrace the future and still honor the past? How can he hold Amina's love and still be true to his dreams? Kofi is torn between the old ways and the pull of modernity. This internal conflict grows heavier with each passing day, and the weight of it presses upon him, like the clouds before a storm. Nana Ifua, the guardian of secrets. Nana Ifua lives on the edge of the village, in a house made of stone and thatch, surrounded by herbs and sacred plants. She is old, though her spirit is sharp as a spear, and her mind holds the memories of 1,000 years. Her skin is marked with the signs of age, but her eyes are clear, knowing, and hold the deep wisdom of the earth itself. To the villagers, Nana Ifua is not merely a grandmother. She is a seer, a keeper of the old ways, the protector of secrets passed down through generations. Her role in the village is not one of rule, but of guidance. When the villagers face trials, it is to Nana Efwa they turn for counsel, and it is said that she can hear the voices of the river spirits, the whispers of the winds, and the cries of the ancestors. Her relationship with Amina is one of deep affection, but also of caution. Nana Afua watches her granddaughter closely, knowing that the path Amina walks is fraught with dangers, some seen, others unseen. Though Amina is the village's shining light, Nana Afua fears that the girl may one day be consumed by a power that she cannot control. For Amina, it is not just the river's spirits she must fear, but the spirits within herself. Kofi and Amina's love is a thing of beauty, but it is also fragile. Beneath the surface, there are cracks, small at first, barely noticeable, but growing wider with each passing day. Kofi watches Amina, his heart full of love, but also full of confusion. There are moments when she is distant, her eyes clouded with thoughts he cannot reach. She speaks of her grandmother often, as though Nana Efwa holds the key to everything. And sometimes, in the silence between them, Kofi feels like an outsider in his own relationship. The village itself seems to be changing. The winds whisper of new ways, ways that challenge the old traditions. The younger ones speak of leaving, of seeking a life beyond the mountains and the river, and Kofi feels this call to the unknown deep within him. But it is Amina, beautiful and mysterious, who holds his heart, yet he knows something is wrong. His love for her begins to feel like a tether, not of affection, but of something darker, a pull that binds him to a future he may not understand. Akomafi stands at the edge of a great change. The winds carry whispers from faraway lands, bringing with them the seeds of a new world, one that threatens to uproot the traditions the village holds dear. The younger generation is restless, and the elders are frightened. They speak of the old ways, the sacred practices, and the spirits who watch over them. But the younger ones do not listen. They look to the horizon and dream of a life beyond. The mountains beyond the river. Nana Efua is troubled. She feels the shift in the air, the stirring of ancient forces that have been asleep for centuries. She knows the river's spirits are angry, that the mountain gods are restless. But there is little she can do to stop the coming storm. The old ways are losing their hold on the hearts of the people, and she fears that the village's very soul is at risk. And in the heart of it all stands Amina, her granddaughter, the girl whose destiny is bound to the fate of the village. Kofi's unease deepens. He begins to notice small things, strange things that stir suspicion in his heart. Amina, who was once open and full of life, has become distant. Her eyes, once warm and bright, now shimmer with a strange light, as though she sees something he cannot. She disappears at odd hours, slipping away into the night, returning only when the stars are high. When Kofi asks where she has been, she smiles, but her smile is fleeting, like a shadow passing across the sun. One night, Kofi follows her, hiding behind the trees by the river's edge. He watches as she kneels beside the water, her hands moving in a strange dance, tracing symbols in the dirt. Symbols Kofi has never seen before. Symbols that make the villagers uneasy. Whispers float through the air, and Kofi hears them now, loud and clear. Amina is not what she seems. The village feels different now. The river's waters churn more violently. The wind carries a strange chill, and the mountain seems to watch them, with eyes that are not its own. The spirits are restless, and the villagers sense it. The land is uneasy, as though it knows something they do not. Kofi's unease grows, and he seeks answers from Nana Afua, but the old woman speaks in riddles. The river speaks of what is to come, she says, her voice low and filled with sorrow. But not all who hear the river's voice are meant to understand. Kofi cannot shake the feeling that something terrible is coming, something that will change everything. The world as he knows it is about to shatter, and Amina, beautiful, mysterious Amina, is at the center of it all. The question now is not if the storm will come, but when. Kofi stood by the edge of the river, staring into the dark, swirling waters. The village lay behind him, nestled in the valley where the mountains rose, like silent sentinels. But the river was alive, whispering stories of the past, of ancient spirits, of forces that both nurtured and destroyed. It was a force he had always respected, but now, with every rush of water, it seemed to mock him. His heart was heavy with doubt. Amina, the woman he loved, the woman who had filled his world with light, had changed. There was something in her eyes that he no longer recognized. Her smile was still the same, but there was a coldness in it now. A shadow, like the dark river spirits, had taken root in her, and he could not shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. But what? What was this terrible thing she had hidden from him? Was it her connection to the river, to the spirits that had long ruled their village? Kofi closed his eyes, remembering the words his father had once spoken. The river chooses its vessels wisely, but it also devours them whole. The words echoed in his mind like a drumbeat. He felt as though the village's very spirit was shifting beneath his feet, and the woman he loved was at the heart of it. He could not wait any longer. With a heavy heart, Kofi made his way to Nana, Effa's hut, the place where wisdom and mystery mingled like smoke and incense. Her home, hidden away at the village's edge, seemed to carry the weight of countless generations within its walls. The hut was small, but it smelled of herbs, roots, and something ancient, something alive. As Kofi entered, Nana Afua looked up. From the cauldron she was stirring, her old eyes pierced him, reading his soul with a depth that frightened him. "Kofi, my son," she said, her voice soft yet firm. "I see the storm in your heart." Kofi hesitated, unsure of how to begin. He had come seeking answers, but the answers he sought seemed to carry a price he was unwilling to pay. "Nana Afua," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "There is something wrong with Amina. I can feel it. The villagers are whispering about her connection to the river spirits." Nana Afua did not respond at first. She simply stirred the cauldron, her eyes distant. Then with a deep sigh, she began to speak. "The women in our lineage," she said slowly, her voice heavy with memories, "are both revered and feared. They are the vessels of the river's power, chosen not by us, but by the spirits that dwell in the waters. These women, they possess wisdom beyond what any of us can understand. They are a blessing to the land, but also a curse." Kofi listened intently, the weight of her words settling over him like a heavy cloak. He wanted to speak, to ask more, but something in her eyes warned him to remain silent. "You must tread carefully, Kofi," Nana Afua continued, her voice now a low whisper. "The past holds secrets, secrets best left untouched, for they have the power to undo us all." Kofi's heart raced. The shadows in his mind grew darker, and his suspicions deepened. What was Amina hiding? What was she becoming? The next day, whispers began to fill the air like a choking fog. The elders, once proud of Amina's beauty and grace, spoke in hushed tones. The village that had once admired her now feared her. The river, they said, had chosen her as its vessel, its prophet. Kofi heard these whispers everywhere he went, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not escape them. The river spirits, they said, were ancient beings, neither fully good nor evil. They were as old as the earth itself and could offer power to those brave or foolish enough to seek it. The river spirit chooses its vessel. The village elder, old Kwaku, murmured to a group of women, but it takes from them much more than they realize. Amina may be blessed, but the serpent that lives within her may one day swallow her whole. Kofi stood by the path, his heart heavy. The woman he loved was tied to something darker than he had ever imagined. But he could not, would not believe the rumors. Not yet. His love for Amina was too strong, and he had known her too long. Yet, still, the serpent's shadow loomed large in his mind. He had seen the way Amina moved recently. Her steps so fluid, so deliberate, like the winding of a snake. Her gaze, once warm and loving, now held something else. Was it the river? Was it the spirits she had become one with? The presence of snakes grew stronger, and Kofi could no longer deny it. He would hear strange hissing sounds at night, coming from the direction of Amina's house. The air would feel charged with something electric, something alive. He recalled the elders' words about the serpent spirits, the river's messengers. They were creatures of beauty and death, wisdom and destruction. The same serpents that could give power could just as easily take it away. Kofi's thoughts became a whirlwind. The more he thought, the more it became clear. Amina was changing. The signs were all around him, the hissing sounds, the way the air grew still when she was near, and the whispers. Oh, the whispers. In the village, the elders began to avoid her. Even those who had once called her daughter turned their faces when she passed. What had happened to the girl they had all loved? Had the river's power consumed her? At home, the pressure on Kofi from his family grew unbearable. His father, a stern man steeped in tradition, came to him one evening with heavy words. "Kofi," his father said, "you are the pride of our people. It is time to settle. You must marry, soon. Amina is the one. She is the future of our village, your future." But Kofi's heart was torn. He loved Amina, yes, but what had she become? The truth, whatever it was, gnawed at him, eating him alive. His father's words pressed him harder, like an invisible hand on his chest. "You are a man of our people," his father continued, his voice commanding. "You must act, for the spirits are watching. Do not disappoint them." Kofi's thoughts swirled in a storm of emotions. His love for Amina, his loyalty to his family, and his fear of what she had become all mixed together. His heart screamed for him to act, but he was lost, caught between the old ways and the new. Later that night, under the glow of the moon, Kofi found himself standing in front of Nana Afua's hut once more. His heart was heavy with the burden of truth. He needed answers. He needed to know what Amina had become. Nana Afua met his gaze as he entered. Her face was shadowed with sorrow, but her eyes were sharp. "Kofi, my child," she said softly, "you have heard the whispers. You have seen the signs. What you seek is not easily found. You must understand. The river spirits do not give their power freely. There is always a price to pay." Kofi clenched his fists, his voice trembling. "Amina, she is the river's vessel, isn't she?" Kofi's voice cracked with the weight of the question. Nana Afua's gaze softened. "Yes, child. Amina has made a pact with the river spirits, but her soul is the price. And when you make a deal with the river, there is no going back." The truth hit Kofi like a thunderclap. Amina, the woman he loved, had chosen power over everything they had. She had made a deal with the very forces that had always protected their village. Kofi's heart shattered. His love for Amina was real, but now the woman he knew was gone. In her place was something else, a creature of the river, a serpent who had betrayed not just him, but the traditions that had shaped their lives. For generations, The village would not survive this. Kofi knew that now. He could feel the ancient spirits closing in, and the balance of the land was teetering on the edge of destruction. In the distance, he could hear the rivers roar, as if calling to him. But Kofi was no longer sure whether it was calling him to redemption or to ruin. Under the silver gaze of the full moon, Kofi's heart was heavy with grief. The river before him, which had always been a source of peace, now seemed to churn with a restless energy, as if it too sensed the storm brewing in Kofi's heart. The wind carried whispers of ancient words, the kind that were passed down from the elders, the kind that spoke of life and death, of love and betrayal. Kofi stood there, looking at the dark waters, knowing that the woman he loved, Amina, was waiting for him by the sacred riverbank. The moonlight bathed the land in a ghostly glow, casting shadows that seemed to stretch like arms reaching from the earth itself. The river, a powerful force that had shaped the village for generations, reflected Kofi's troubled soul. Every ripple on its surface seemed to mirror the turmoil within him. He was about to face Amina, the woman who had once held his heart in her hands, but now she was something else, something he could not yet understand. As Kofi took his first step toward the water, the very earth beneath him seemed to tremble, as if it too feared what was coming. The birds, usually full of song at night, were silent. Even the trees, whose branches swayed in the breeze, seemed to hold their breath. Kofi's feet moved off their own accord, drawn by something he could not name, toward the place where the river spirits were said to dwell. He stopped at the edge, his eyes scanning the shadows. And there she was, Amina, standing by the water, her back to him, her silhouette both beautiful and haunting. She was still, but the air around her was electric, as if something powerful had awakened within her. Amina, Kofi's voice cracked, but he pushed forward. What is this? What have you done? Amina turned slowly, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. A cold smile spread across her lips, and for a moment, Kofi wondered if this was the same woman who had once whispered sweet promises in his ear. But the woman before him was not the same. There was something serpentine in her gaze, something ancient and unforgiving. "I've done nothing," Amina replied softly, her voice laced with both sorrow and power. "I've only embraced what was always meant to be mine." Kofi took a step back, his breath catching in his chest. The air was thick with an unsettling energy, and the sound of the river, usually gentle and inviting, now echoed like a warning. You've been using me." Kofi's heart dropped, the realization settling in like a stone in his stomach. "All this time, my love, my trust, was it all just a game to you?" Amina's smile widened, but there was no joy in it. "I never lied to you, Kofi," she said. "I simply let you see what you wanted to see. I let you love me so I could take what I needed." Her words cut into him like a knife, and Kofi felt the weight of every moment they had shared. The love he thought they had was nothing more than a tool she had used to fulfill her own dark ambitions. She had played him, his emotions, his trust, like a puppet on a string, all for power. Amina's form began to change, her movements slow and fluid, like a snake unfurling itself. Her eyes, once full of warmth, now shimmered with an unnatural light. Her body twisted, her limbs elongated, her skin took on an almost iridescent sheen. She was becoming something else entirely, something he could no longer recognize. Kofi's heart raced. "No, Amina, this isn't you," he whispered, his voice cracking with disbelief. "You were once my heart's desire. Now, you're something dark, something I don't understand. I was always dark, Kofi. Amina hissed. I was born of the river's power. I was chosen to be its vessel, to bring the spirits of the river into this world. You were just the stepping stone, the tool I needed to rise. Kofi could hardly breathe. His love, his life, had been nothing but a lie. The woman he had given everything to had been playing him all along. The wind howled, and the river surged, as if it too had heard Amina's confession. The once peaceful waters now rose like a great beast, thrashing against the banks, reflecting the chaos within Kofi. The earth trembled beneath their feet as the storm began to gather strength. A dark cloud seemed to hang over them, and Kofi felt the weight of his heartache press down on him. Torn between love and betrayal, Kofi could feel the pull of both forces inside him. His love for Amina, the woman he had known, fought against the truth that had shattered his world. And in the midst of this, the spirits of the river stirred. They had heard the words, felt the shift in the world, and now they were coming. The storm grew fiercer. Thunder rumbled like a warning, shaking the heavens above. The spirits were near, drawn to the broken bond between Amina and the river, and they were not pleased. The river itself seemed to boil with anger, its waters crashing against the shore, as though it sought to claim its wayward daughter. You have betrayed us, Amina. A voice boomed, deep as the earth, ancient as the stars. It was not a voice of one, but of many. The spirits of the river speaking through the storm. You were chosen to protect the balance, not to break it. Amina's face twisted in fear, but there was no escape. The storm roared, and the river rose higher, almost swallowing them both in its fury. Kofi stepped forward, his chest heavy with sorrow, but his resolve growing stronger. He could not let this destruction consume everything. The village, his people, they all depended on him now. The spirits of the river were unforgiving, but Kofi knew that his people's survival depended on his actions. I offer myself to you, river spirits, Kofi cried, his voice strong and unwavering. Take me, if it is my life you need. Let my sacrifice restore the balance. Let my death bring peace to my people. His words echoed through the night, carried by the storm, and the river seemed to calm for a moment, as if it had heard his plea. The wind slowed, and the air grew still, as if holding its breath. The spirits of the river were watching, waiting for Kofi's fate to unfold. Amina's eyes widened as she watched Kofi's sacrifice, her heart torn between the hunger for power and the love she had once known, trembled. Kofi, no, she whispered, reaching out for him, but it was too late. The storm began again, and the river swelled, as if it had made its judgment. Kofi stood firm, offering himself for the sake of his village. The spirits had taken his offer, his life, his love, his sacrifice. This was the price of the betrayal. The river, the ancient force of life and death, would decide the fate of them all. And so, in that moment, Kofi stood on the edge of the river, ready to give up everything for the balance of his people. The storm raged, and the river's judgment would come soon. Amina, in the face of the river's wrath, was forced to confront the truth of her choices, the power she had sought, the ambition that had consumed her, had brought her to this moment of reckoning. The river, once her ally, was now her judge. Could she turn back? Could she find redemption? Or would she be swallowed by the very force she had sought to control? The storm howled louder, and the spirits' voices rose once more, demanding justice. The river, with its mighty flow, waited for Amina's choice. And so, under the full moon, with the river raging and the spirits watching, the fate of the village, of Kofi, and of Amina hung in the balance. Would love redeem them, or would the darkness consume them all? The river, like the forces of life and death, would not wait forever. Amina stood at the edge of the river, her feet barely touching the earth, her soul trembling. The storm had passed, but in her heart the tempest raged. The waters that once felt like a promise of power and destiny now seemed like a mirror to her soul, dark, turbulent, and unforgiving. She had reached the end of her journey, but not the way she had hoped. The serpent inside her, her ambition, her thirst for control, had turned against her. It was no longer a symbol of strength. Now it coiled around her heart, a reminder of the destruction she had caused. Kofi, she whispered, the name burning on her tongue like ash. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing. The water rippled gently, as if it too felt the weight of her regret. Amina closed her eyes, letting the cool, night air fill her lungs, wishing for peace that she could not grasp. Spirits of the river, she called softly, hear me. I come not as the woman you once chose, but as the one who has lost everything. Forgive me. Forgive my ambition, my pride. I seek only your mercy. The river, once so wild, now calmed. The angry winds had stilled, and the clouds parted, letting the moonlight bathe the waters in silver. The spirits had heard her, but they did not answer with fury. They spoke with silence. The stillness of the river mirrored the stillness in Amina's heart. She had lost everything, the power, the control, the love. And in losing it all, she had found something more precious than any ambition, a chance at redemption. The river, ancient and wise, listened. The spirits, who had once carried the weight of her sins, now held the promise of her rebirth. Amina lowered her head, tears falling into the water. I have walked the path of darkness. Let me walk the path of light now, she said, her voice barely a whisper. For a long moment, there was nothing but the sound of the river flowing, smooth and steady, as though the earth itself was exhaling in relief. The river had accepted her plea. The spirits were no longer angry. They had not spoken, but their silence was more than enough. Amina's heart was no longer heavy with ambition. The serpent that had once slithered through her veins, filling her with power and desire, now receded into the depths of her soul. It was no longer her strength. It was her weakness. She felt it leaving her, and in its place was an aching emptiness. The moonlight fell on her like a blessing, and as the water lapped gently at her feet, she felt as though the world was cleansing her, washing away the sins of her past. I surrender, she whispered. I give up the power that consumed me. I give up the serpent. I give up the darkness. Amina stood there for a long time, the cold water kissing her skin, the soft winds whispering through the trees. Her once fiery eyes had dulled, but there was a quiet strength in them now. The power that she had once craved had cost her everything, but in her surrender, she found something far more valuable, her humanity. Meanwhile, Kofi had returned to the village. He walked slowly, his steps heavy but steady, as though the weight of the past few days still pressed upon his shoulders. His heart had been torn, his trust broken, but now, as he looked upon his village, he understood. Kofi stood in the center of the village, his voice strong as he spoke to his family, his friends, and the villagers gathered around him. The serpent, he began, is not a beast that lives outside us. It lives within. It is our desires, our ambitions. And when we chase after it, we risk losing everything. I have learned that love is not about control. It is about respect. It is about balance. The villagers listened in silence, hanging on to every word. The lessons that Kofi had learned in the darkest moments of his life were now being passed on. We cannot let power guide us, he continued. We must always remember where we come from, who we are, and who we serve. Only then can we find true peace. His words echoed in the hearts of the villagers as they reflected on the events that had unfolded. Amina's rise and fall had shown them all the dangers of unchecked ambition, the cost of losing one's soul in the pursuit of power. The elders spoke next, their voices filled with the wisdom of many generations. The river teaches us that all things must flow, one elder said, and those who try to control the flow will find themselves swept away. The power of the land is not to be wielded by any one person. It is shared by all who live in harmony with it. The villagers nodded, understanding. Amina's story, now a cautionary tale, would be passed down through the generations. It would serve as a reminder that no matter how great one's desires, the earth, the spirits, and the ancestors would always have the final say. As the story came to a close, the village returned to its rhythms. The land was peaceful again. The spirits were at rest, and Kofi's heart, though scarred, was at peace. He had learned that true power lies not in what one can control, but in the humility to face one's mistakes and seek forgiveness. Amina, now a shadow of her former self, had found a new path. It was not the one she had hoped for, but it was a path that led to redemption. She knew that her journey was far from over, and though she may never return to the village, her heart had been changed. The serpent no longer ruled her, and so the village continued, forever changed by the events that had unfolded by the river. The spirits had spoken, and their judgment had been swift, but the lesson was clear. Only through humility, self-awareness, and respect for the land could true peace be found. The river, once a symbol of wrath, had become a symbol of rebirth, and as Kofi looked to the horizon, he knew that the future was in his hands, and in the hands of those who would listen to the teachings of the land, the spirits, and the ancestors.